Hello everyone. This is our very first Avocado Sprint release meeting that is going to be broadcast and kept for posterity on Hangouts on Air. So users can watch it later and see what we discussed, and they can also join the meeting while it is happening. So today we're going to talk about the release actions, the items that we have finished during this sprint. We're going to go through a very quick overview of those. Going to demo some of the features that made into this release. And we're going to talk about, of course, the direction for the next release. So thanks for everyone to make part of this meeting, to be a part of this meeting, and I'm going to start sharing my screen so we can take a look at what we have delivered during this week. So this is Sprint 39, nicknamed Hateful 8, after so much love in the previous release called Love Can. So very quickly, what we have done on this release is we have cleaned up a couple of deprecations that was present in the Avocado core test class. This is not usually significant to end users, but if you write your own test extension, your own test loader, you should be aware that the tag is not anymore a valid test parameter. This is built into the test name now. And now the test name is actually a class, is an instance of a given class and not a string anymore. So quite relevant to writers of their own test types and their own test loaders. Since the previous release, we have updated a bunch of wikis around the web and also some blog posts and things like that, which were referring to KVM Autotest and even Vertest, so two last incarnations of what we have now under Avocado VT. So users should now be able to find good reference and good information on how to set up their system to actually use Avocado. So this web page that I'm opening is for KVM. If you are, say, a libvirt developer, you should also have updated instructions on how to test your libvirt work with Avocado. So almost every relevant mention we found out there was updated to cover how to use Avocado instead. There was an issue opened by QE where they would be getting SIG pipes during some operations on VMs. Long story short, we were changing the default Python handling of SIG pipes, and we were actually mimicking the default shell Unix handling, which is to terminate the application when the SIG pipe is handled. But Python itself actually handles this differently. It ignores SIG pipe, and it actually presents the same information in some exceptions. So Zutian from QE was reporting that tests were crashing instead of the QMP and the HMP monitors that connect to QEMU when they actually try to write to those. Instead of getting proper exceptions, they would get SIG pipes, would terminate the tests. So there was a long discussion on how to fix this. We decided to revert the changes that added this special different handling of the SIG pipes. This is present in both master and in LTS. So people that depend on LTS will have a proper handling of SIG pipes as expected. Next one was an option called fail fast that was introduced on this release. I'll hand it over to Amador, who is going to demo this feature.
Okay, this is a command to speed up the tests. Can you see my screen?
Move your Xterm a bit lower, otherwise it gets blocked by the Hangout buttons. I see it now. Yeah, it's fine.
It's fine now? Okay. So, well, if you have a number of tests, if some tests fails during your job, and you want the job to be interrupted on first test with a bad status, now you have this option, which is fail fast. And the intention here is to interrupt the job on first bad status test. And notice that the exit code, it also contains the job interrupted status. So now we have the job interrupted by the first failed test, and notice that it's reflected on the exit code. So that's it. If you have any comments or questions on this feature, you can both speak now or ping me on my team.
I think Kleber is on mute.
Oh, I'm sorry. So next step is we added the release notes to documentation. We understand that the changes that we have been introducing to Avocado impacts users, and the information was kind of scattered around the web. So we made a little effort to go back, get that information, and put in our own docs. So if you go to Avocado Framework on Read the Docs, which is our default standard documentation place, you're going to find up from 25, which is quite old release at this point, and you're going to have all the release notes there. So if you want to see when something changed, it's going to be faster and easier to find that information now. We have replay functionality, which was introduced many releases ago, but we introduced at this point a special keyword called latest, and it just means that you can rerun the last job no matter what's its job ID. So if you want to keep running the same job, or you just want to replicate the job that you previously run because you changed something and now you want to know what's going to come up with it, you don't need to copy and paste the full command, you can just replay it. There was an issue that was opened by one of our users, Cockpit developer, Onza, a while ago. Lukash tracked what was going on there, and we decided to keep the functionality as it is. On the previous releases, we introduced something that we call Avocado VT job lock. This prevents multiple runs from running the same VT, from running VT tests, which could, in theory, corrupt things like image files. The first version actually did not clean up the lock files intentionally. We received feedback from users and we added the automatic cleanup. The automatic cleanup is based on looking at the process ID inside the log file and checking if that process is still up or not. But then there is a small little issue if the file for some reason does not contain an integer and it cannot be read, then the error message will not be clean enough. That was fixed on this release. So if there's something else, some kind of garbage inside that file, the user is going to know what file actually contains the trash. A couple of cleanups on error messages that the test discovery plugin of Avocado VT actually spits out. We tracked it and we decided that it's not really a good idea to remove this because the information is relevant. So command KVM in this case, on this specific message, is necessary for listing the test, and the user should actually install it to have the proper messages. Do it on call about notification issues. This was basically a maintenance task on our own mailing list. GOS 23 was packaged as QCal to v3. The compatibility level set on that image wouldn't help users on Rel 6, so we decided to repack it using the right compatibility flags that would allow it to be used on everywhere. So next one is that we have, besides Avocado, we have expect dependencies updated on the repo. So this is related to the new packages that we pushed there. This is what actually we considered done. There was a bunch of, there's a couple of important issues that we partially implemented. They're under review. They're worth mentioning. One of them is support for running tests in a Docker container. So we have been supporting running tests in a libvirt domain and in a remote system by means of --remote, --vm, and the other options. We have now introduced support for Docker. There are a few issues which we want to better handle. So in case of some errors like the daemon's not running, the Docker daemon's not running, the user doesn't have the image that he references on the command line and things like that, the error message could be a bit better. Lukasz, do you want to give a quicker demo on this feature, please?
Well, although I would like to, for some reason my Firefox crashed and Chromium does not, share button doesn't work on Chromium. So I don't know if I can ask you to show it, but basically it's very similar to the remote or VM plugin. Basically you just use ---- docker and add the image name. It fetches it and then it runs the Docker container, and I mean clean container for every job, for all the tests the same. It copies the tests there, similarly as with ---- remote. Also, you can actually disable or enable that, and then it runs the test inside the container. And you can see Clever actually runs it. Yeah, so basically it works the same as ---- remote. It cleans up after itself, which means it removes the container you run on.
So this
can be disabled.
Yeah, so this is actually a node Docker container that we're running. So about an hour ago, but the one that was used to actually run those tests, they were, as Lukasz said, they were created and deactivated immediately. So besides the few changes to the error messages, which we plan to do.
Yeah, they are already sent and passed the CI, so they basically wait for review. And yeah, for testing purposes, if you're interested in this feature, there is a minimum Fedora with Avocado installed Docker container created and packed. You can see it in the comments or in documentation for details. So basically, you can just pull the container and run the tests for testing. And of course, for more complex tests, you may want to create your own container with other libraries or programs in it. But just for testing it, it's really simple and even simpler than running inside the VM or remote machine.
Right. Very nice. The next one on the list is list machines and list arcs. The original idea here on this feature was to add features to actually allow users the same way they can do Avocado list, VT list guests, and have a list of guests available to be used using VT guest OS, that is selecting the guest that they want to be used to run a test. Users should also be able to list machines, so they can select the machine types that they want to use. The same thing in the future for architectures. So part of this was merged. Lukasz, do you want to comment on the origins of this request or how it may impact users?
Yes, basically this card is a user experience improvement, and we didn't get to that point to implement the --VT machine type or list machine types or list architectures, etc. But what we finished is to be able to supply the same arguments to run and to list. This means no more faking the machine types for discovering tests on PowerPC, because if you remember, there was an issue that if you wanted to list Avocado VT jobs on Power or ARM or any other but x86 architecture, it failed. So now you can actually supply --VT machine type P series and see all tests available to P series only, and not the generic x86. So this is I think important for some people.
Yeah, definitely. So stay tuned for the VT list machines and VT list arcs options that will bring extra functionality in the near future. We have a bunch of bug fixes which are implemented waiting for review. One is related to the use of --remote, which run tests on a remote machine, and the remote no copy, which is a flag that tells remote that it shouldn't try to send tests from the host machine to the remote machine where they are going to be run. So when those two are used, the test discovery, the test loader, should not happen on the local machine, but only on the remote machine. There is already a pull request that's going to be reviewed and hopefully merged to Avocado. There is also some work going on with regards to the asset fetcher and how it locks the files that they are going to download. Amador, do you want to comment on this work?
Yeah, this is pretty much an internal change. We are just increasing the silence of the asset fetcher with this file locker. It will be an utility, so it can be used anywhere else. I mean, the file locker part, and asset fetcher will take advantage of this utility, so we can lock the file while running some operations during the fetch part of the asset fetcher operations. So, but this is pretty much an internal change. Users are not supposed to be affected by this.
Okay, and just to make it clear, the asset fetcher is a feature that Avocado delivers to test writers that they can reference some asset, say a tarball, say a Linux kernel, or any other kind of resource that the test is going to need, and the asset fetcher can actually catch it and fetch it and actually cache it for the user. So on subsequent runs, the user would already have the mentioned asset. There's some work going on decoupling the multiplexer from the test parameter system. Most of this was based on a discussion on the upstream mailing list. We are deciding which parts of the system should actually be pluggable, so users should be able to step in and actually provide their own tree that's going to be translated into variants and then into test parameters. If you guys are interested, you can take a look at the discussions that's going on upstream. And Lukasz, do you want to add anything to this?
Not really. I think the discussion's quite stable, and you can start developing it unless you have some stronger opinions and join the discussion in the following week.
Okay. Next one, this card is kind of has a bad title at this point. It started when we noticed that the time that is given when you run Avocado, an Avocado job, like there is one or many tests, the time that is shown is a combination of the individual time that was spent during each test, but there could be other things that add time to the job, and the idea is that we actually show the job time to be the exact time that it took to run the job and not the sum of the individual test times. It turned out that we were actually creating the test results inside the context of the job. So the job is responsible right now internally of creating the the test results, and this brings a chicken and egg situation. So we are having to decouple the test generation, the test result generation from the job itself and moving it outside. There is already some work with regards to not having the job not having any knowledge about the test result plugins. There is a pull request that was already merged with regards to how plugins can register that, and there is a work in progress prototype that actually removes any knowledge that the job has about test results. Finally, there is Job API. This has been more active on previous sprints, and it's pending another an updated version with the changes already discussed, and mostly the configuration system that is going to be proposed. So that's the end of the done and work in progress items. We have talked about the release status. We are planning on waiting a few more hours, maybe half a day, to introduce the changes that we mentioned here. The better error messages, the better error handling to the Docker plugin. There's also some changes to be added to Avocado Vert, which is not Avocado VT, is the mostly prototype work we have done, but we have tried to keep them stable and updated. And it looks like one of the changes, probably the change that we brought to the test tag, actually needs some update on Avocado Vert before we actually release the sprint. But this should be
I actually took a look, and it's exactly the same things you edit to Avocado VT needs to be added to Avocado Vert.
Yeah. And sometimes, because it's, like I said, it's mostly a prototype work, we have not actively investing time on it. Sometimes it slips. It happened this time, but it should be a straightforward change. So this is the end of the work in progress and the done items that's going to make the face of this new release. I would like to open up for questions or feedback or anything else before we move into the planning for the next sprint. Ademar, Grishma, Yash. Nope. Okay. So let's move to the planning. We already have, as can be seen, a bunch of stuff to be handled on the work in progress that is going to be subject to the next sprint. And we have a few items on the, not a few, but quite a few items on the sprint backlog as well. So I think Ademar is playing with the boards, right?
Yes.
Okay. So we have now created done for 40 and work in progress 40. And we have a bunch of items in the sprint backlog. Do you want to mention what is going to be the focus of this new sprint, Ademar?
Yeah, sure. So this is the sprint right before KVM Forum. We should be delivering a newer version of Avocado in the week prior to KVM Forum. And even though we are not going to present anything officially there, actually most of the team will not be there. I think that from all of you, only from all of us, only I will be there. But we are going to have many Kiwi folks. We're going to have most of the engineering team there. So it's an opportunity for us to showcase Avocado, and we might have an opportunity to talk about it. We might have an opportunity to demo it, and so on. So we should have a release that is like we should have a good release ready, and that's the focus for this release. Think of KVM Forum, and in particular, think of features that are interesting to developers or QEMU engineers, KVM engineers. So that's the focus of this sprint. I believe that we have many items in the work in progress and the sprint backlog, so it should be basically enough for a sprint. But we have two particular items in the to-do short-term backlog, which I consider very important, which are experimentations with RR, which is it's basically a front end to GDB. And I think that in Avocado we already support it using the profilers feature or wrappers. I think the wrappers feature. Yeah, so with the wrappers feature in Avocado, it should be easy to use RR, but we should run some experiments and document it. And the other thing is the tool to generate a diff report. So these would be two interesting features for engineers, for developers, developers of QEMU, because engineers, all of you are engineers and all of you are developers. But to QEMU developers, I think these two features are interesting. So I would like them to be considered high priority for this sprint. Other than that, the items in the work in progress in the sprint backlog and in the to-do short-term backlog because they are prioritized.
Okay, that sounds fair enough. I just want to go through this item. It is related to something that we mentioned before, and I think it deserves a place since it's marked as a bug. It has users can have a bad experience when not installing the HTML plugins package. The point is that the packages, it's the only scope that this is a plugin, because internally in Python it's not, it's built-in. So this is something we can achieve with the changes I'm working on. So I'm going to move this to the sprint backlog also, and as it is common, bugs have a very high priority. So I'm taking the liberty here to move the two items you mentioned to the sprint backlog. And I think we can be we can focus on work in progress on the sprint backlog, which is already quite populated, and if times allow, we can push more cards from there. So just to give a brief overview of what we intend to do on the sprint, we are going to check, besides the items we already mentioned, we're going to check how RR behaves in Avocado, try to come up with a tool that generates differences between two different job runs. Make sure the Avocado HTML plugin is a real plugin, so if it's not installed, it doesn't affect any other part of the tool. Check how the host variants on Avocado VT can be made upstream, because there's some tests that this actually prevents from running. Set and properly announce the policy for Avocado MISC tests. We've been having a lot of contributions, and we want to make sure what is the cut line, the review policy, and everything else for that. We have an RFC that is on the pipeline as well to describe how we want to handle tests that actually gather multiple machines, that actually involve multiple machines. Some changes to the ISO 9660 library that we have inside Avocado. Consider skipping core dump generation when user is not root, so he cannot generate that. Distribute Cartesian config. And finally, this is one item which we already added to this release. I think we can call it a low-hanging fruit, and that's for runner and core API, which is to add fail fast to replay whitelist so the two features can work together. I think that's about it. That's going to shape the face of the upcoming release, the so-called KVM forum release, which, oh, we already have a name, it's Doctor Who. Okay, Doctor Who is going to look like this. Do you guys want to add anything else? Okay, so I take that it's a no. I thank you guys for actually joining, spending time with us, and as always, we appreciate your presence and your feedback and your use and your bugs and everything. So thanks a lot, and see you around. Bye bye.
Okay, thank you. See you guys.
Bye bye.